Corn on the horn. Hey everybody, it's Corran, and we've got Karl Koenig and Andrew Moss. We're gonna be spoiling some cards here in a little bit, but first, just in case folks are watching or listening that don't know these people, we got a little. I'm gonna do a little bit of a little brief introduction here. So Karl, how'd you get into Star Wars cards?
I was bored during the pandemic and I was up late one night and on YouTube they were streaming. I watched the indoor stream and I realized the game was still around. I remember like friends playing it as a kid. I played a lot of Star Trek and then I found out about GIMP. I started playing and then somebody met me at a Panera and I showed up with an actual deck and he didn't make fun of me. So then I stayed.
So, so the story behind that is that the first time I met our friend Travis, he never lets me hear the end of it. He handed me a pile of cards and said, "This is my
He did.
deck." It had more weapons than characters in it, and I was like, "This is definitely a pile of cards." But and Andrew, how'd you get into Star Wars cards?
Since the beginning, I actually read Scry that and was reading about the fact that there was a Star Wars or Star Trek CCG, and that they were going to coming out with something with Star Wars. And huge fan at that point. Really didn't have a play group at that point, so I just played with my brothers. And I remember the first time that we played, we thought we had to have the same site in order to be able to battle. So it was like for the first 20 minutes, it was just picking up cards until we could find the Death Star docking bay, and then finally both of us laid it down and stormtroopers, rebel troopers. I think the biggest card we had was like Bo Sheck at that point, like coming down on the table, and that was it. And been playing ever since.
Cool, cool. So Andrew, you are known in the community as someone that plays thematic decks. What does that mean to you?
So I'm the guy that won't mix eras, and for the most part, it's almost original trilogy. But I kind of take it even one step farther. So if I'm playing like a Diplo deck, like you can play Obi-Wan, but you can't play like a Jedi Luke because he was not a Jedi at that point. Or if I'm playing a Hikko deck and I'm playing with Jedi Luke, like not going to play Yoda because Yoda's not around at that point. He passed into the ether. So it makes for some really interesting deck building challenges. And oftentimes I get to pull out new cards. Sometimes it'd be really nice to pull out Mace with swinging twice alongside that Luke, but the never two shall meet. So it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and it allows, I think, for people. I think there's a kind of a furtive community, a secretive community that really appreciates kind of the thematics of it as well. So I've had a couple people reach out kind of privately asking for those decks because they may have a play group where they don't want to mix the eras, and so I can kind of give them some competitive decks that can make things fun, and you can have kind of those battle scenario decks, Hoth and or etc.
It's definitely something that a lot of people, once they're done saying I have a garbage bag full of Premiere, is it worth any money? A lot of people do want to build thematic decks, or at least they ask for help building thematic decks, and there's I feel like there's a mixed follow through on that. So it is refreshing to see somebody that will actually follow through on that. Personally, for me, Star Wars cards is all about mixing the eras. I think it is a what if scenario. When you have because the game itself is already so thematic. Like I think because it actually feels like you're playing in the Star Wars universe. Being able to have, it's like, well, what if Obi-Wan and Luke, what if Obi-Wan and Luke did know each other? What if Mace Windu and Luke Skywalker were both around at the same time? What would it look like? And And
it would cost a lot of
everything.
force. That's
Yeah.
what I've learned. Like for having that, so you better have a lot of activation, like everything on the table at that point. But yeah, I think people always kind of joke like, does it upset you that people play mixed? No, like play the way that you want to play. So I mean, to me, it's always been something that I've kind of challenged myself with.
Hmm.
And I appreciate those who are like, nope, you know what? I want to go the complete opposite. I want to see Anakin, Padme, and Rey all on the table at the same
Hmm.
time in that same battle. Go for
I mean,
Yeah.
Andrew, you've got to be one of the top 3 players who handicaps yourself.
it. I take that as the highest compliment I can. Yes, it's. I find myself. It can be limiting, but again, it makes for some creative deck decisions at that point.
So you are a prominent volunteer. What is your role as a volunteer in the community?
So I've been lucky enough. So I started within player card design. I did that probably about 3-4 years. So worked alongside Fungineer, Lenny when he was on the team, a bunch of others. And then after that time, I was lucky enough to be chosen to be on design. So now I work on design. I've been doing that for probably about a year and a half now. So I work alongside Chris, a bunch of other folks, Ryan, Taco Bill. So it's been great, and Dylan now. So it's been really nice to have Dylan join the team and provide a unique perspective from that.
How have
Especially
you?
with around RST.
I was about to say, Rebel Strike Team, watch
Yeah,
out.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
How
you know what's going to happen.
how have you brought your like thematic everything? How have you brought your thematic ideas to your position in design, or how has that
So every time,
perspective? Yeah.
yeah, no, I appreciate the question. So every time that I think about a new card, I try and think how it fits within the movie canon, within what the era would be representative at that particular time frame. So, what I'm excited to do is kind of when we go through the spoiler cards, these are the ones that I started with the initial design and certainly had a tremendous amount of help from Chris and the rest of the team. But I like to think of like if you were playing this specific card, like would you see that scene in the movie and think, oh, I know how this kind of plays in. So that's how I design everything. And at the same time, I don't want to make a card that's just going to find thematics, but then also find itself in the binder. So I try and make them very much competitive. It's just a different choice. And
Mm.
so whether you can adjust something from a power level in relation to the game text, whether it's maybe they have some unique capabilities depending upon the location they are, that's the way that I kind of design. And so it takes me a little bit longer to design because I really try and put a lot of thought into where it is. And my hope is that every time that someone says, looks at a new design, they think, oh, well, I'm getting the thematics here. And whether it's me, again, Taco Bill or anyone else, like people can kind of see why we were designing the card we were and build the deck around how that would work.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate that because I think, I mean, there's a mix. There's definitely a mix of thematic stuff and not so thematic stuff in Star Wars CCG. For me, a lot of times when people say, "Oh, this isn't thematic at all," then I'll be like, "Well, actually, no. This is why it is." Like my favorite one that I always bring up is No Idea. I love that the it warps the idea of what does it mean to deplete your opponent's life force. Because the goal of No Idea is to get the stolen data tapes, beamed off the world to get the Death Star plans for whatever happens in the next Diplo game or whatever. So winning that game doesn't mean defeating the dark side. It doesn't mean beating the Empire. It means depleting them of it means achieving your goal. And it does it I think it does it in a really elegant way. So Karl, just to because I'm interviewing both of you here a little bit. Why does everybody likes you? Why does everybody like you?
That's true.
I think that I play the game with a lot of fun, and Andrew, I'm going to tell the story. Like Andrew and I had a game at Worlds 2 years ago where I think we shot each other like 30 times, and it was one of the most fun games of Star Wars I've ever played. And I lost track of time, and time got called. Like at that moment, I wasn't like caring. I wasn't playing in a tournament. I was playing Star Wars cards, having fun. To the point that it was Rescue the Princess versus Shadow Collective, I messaged Andrew afterwards and I said, all right, we have to do this thematically. So I sent him a thematic Shadow Collective and we had a grudge match and I lost.
I mean, it was close though. Let's be honest.
It was
Like,
close.
I mean, you also were, again, you were not playing without like the ideal deck, but you definitely, you were damn close. You were damn close.
It was fun. I don't know why people like me. I mean, I think I've just got like a nice personality and I'm a good host and I want people to have fun and I don't flip tables. Maybe I should. Should I?
Should you flip tables? I feel like table flipping is not always the best. I do want to shout out Chris Kelly is in the chat, and he does want to clarify that that Andrew deserves his position on design. It was not just luck. And he also says,
I take a lot of pride in that, and I appreciate that.
He also says that Karl is fun and cares about people. Karl's the best. And my wife just sent me a message making fun of me for asking such a hardball question.
I mean, I don't know, Kendall. Why don't people like you? On to the cards.
What'd you say? Why don't people like me?
I said, why do people like you? I was returning the question.
Yeah.
Why do people like me? Because I do the bare minimum? I don't know.
You do more than the bare minimum, my
I
friend.
could not agree more. I could not agree more.
Yeah, Zeke says we like all the content, and I appreciate that.
I mean, one of the people on this podcast was the content creator of the year last year, and it wasn't me because I don't know how to turn on my computer.
Yeah. I mean, I had to restart Chrome in order to be able to run this program right now.
Yeah,
so, I mean, clearly that's not me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, okay. I do want to. Well, we'll go ahead. Everybody's here for the spoilers. Let's talk spoilers. Let's
Perfect.
launch with. So these first two spoilers, are kind of related, and they did actually. Some of the ideas, at least, I take a little bit of credit for because they were in. We talked about them in the Bounty Hunter accessory pod that I'm in that has like 1,000 threads of us just throwing spaghetti against the wall. So it's nice to see at least something related to it seeing the light of day. But this one actually I really think is important. One of the things, Court of the Vile Gangster. We're in the audience chamber right now, as anyone watching can see. Court of the Vile Gangster. Nobody wants to flip it because you lose your forfeit bonuses. So finally, we have a way to at least keep some of your forfeit bonuses. How do I do this? Move to top. There we go. We have all wrapped up. Deploy on table. May download. Jabba's Palace or Mantel, unless Court of the Vile Gangster on table. Dagobah and Cloud City Bounty Hunters are forfeit +2. If opponent's character is about to be forfeited, your Bounty Hunter president may capture the characters return to normal. So yeah, Andrew, talk about this card.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been one. I've always liked the capture sub theme. I think that what it does is it creates a little bit more balance with especially main-based decks where if you've got just a Jedi Luke like just tanked out, but you're able to capture him, it's a big hindrance at that point. So it kind of adds a little bit more complexity to the battle with Darkseid, especially if you're not just counting on like hidden weapons or anything. And honestly, the worst thing would frustrates me, I would say, a little bit about capturing is typically you say like, oh, I captured your Luke, but he's just going to go to the use pile. Right. And so this is a good example of where I'm hoping to build it in a different way. And so you can actually make capturing viable. And I specifically chose like Dagobah and Cloud City Bounty Hunters because they're the ones that typically have the lowest destiny value. And so we've started Ving some of them. Hopefully some folks have seen what came out of like the revamped Dengar. So that was something that I was proud of. My brother and I created that one way back when. And so I wanted to kind of tweak that a little bit. But again, he's Destiny 1, not a great Destiny. Well, here they get a little bit of a boost. And right, for the Cloud City Bounty Hunter, we should have just said Boba Fett, I guess, to a certain extent, but we wouldn't want to give that to, our wonderful maintenance version. So we had to put in the the icon
Mhm.
instead. But I mean, between you think about IG-88, you think about Dengar, you think about Boss, and then it opens up the possibility for future bounty hunters from that Dagobah set that can really appreciate
I mean,
and
you can
so
always stick the Dagobah icon on them if you want to.
exactly. I mean, that would be another way of being able to do it for sure. So being able to do that, and then alongside, now you've got an actual way, if we wanted to kind of build out a sub theme around actually flipping and possibly feeding people to those wondrous rankers and Sarlaccs, this actually doesn't, I would say, uh, promote a weakness of the deck, which is basically you flip and all of a sudden now you lose, you lose the docking bays, you lose the starship access, and you lose your forfeit. So why would you ever forfeit? I think it's a very interesting design from Decipher standpoint when they made this. But that was the way it is.
Yeah.
And obviously, kind of there's a spoiler of you can download Jabba Ord Mantell, right? And so for those who are thinking way back when, Ord Mantell was one of those systems where I always wonder, well, why wasn't it a little bit better? So it actually is back from the Hoth set. We wanted to differentiate it there because what that system does is actually create a deploy modifier that decreases. Well, you combine that with Court, it's kind of a mess then, because then they're deploying free to Ord Mantell beforehand. We didn't want that, so we created a new Ord Mantell, which we're going to show momentarily, and you'll see the value of that. But that's really where the idea of all wrapped up came in. The other thing that I would say from a thematic standpoint is, obviously this is a picture of Luke doing this sort of stuff. I really hope that people will be able to see the value that it comes in, where you are playing a more thematic capture deck. By the same token, this also helps from a gameplay perspective, not only, Jabba's, you can replace this with Jabba's Haven with this, but by this, and also simultaneously, if you're thinking about Tiglet, you can be able to play this right from the outset. So you've got another location that you can pull immediately, because that deck especially suffers from early activation challenges.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Chris Kelly brings up that he wants to build a bounty hunter deck that starts the new All Wrapped Up along with Imperial West Order and Secret Plans and 3 effects. My thought is for the and I haven't, I've barely put very much thought into it, but being able to pull Ord Mantell, you could do. I mean, people have been pulling shenanigans with like mob points, so you could do. I feel like there's some potential for a big blue deck where you can pull Ord Mantell. You pull a system with mob points. You start with Bespin on table so you can get your free executor. Seems good. And then we've got Ord Mantell, Smuggler, light side smugglers and independent starships are deploy -1. And for dark side, your independent starships may move here as a react. Once per game, if you control, may upload Deathmark. Which I had to have my wife look up Deathmark. That's it's a Nutini effect, which we don't see a lot of those. But you basically play it on a site and you target a smuggler. So you could target a smuggler in space and play it on one of your sites, and then they lose a force every turn until they get to the site. It's pretty neat. I mean, a Deathmark's not an easy thing to live with, is what I'm saying, I guess.
It is not.
Well played.
And Andrew, I think that there's this Barry that was at dinner with us at Worlds was talking about indirect damage, and when I read this, I'm like, in full disclosure, I had to read what Deathmark did, and then I'm like, oh man, this could be really interesting, because like there's so many new versions of Han, and like most decks play a smuggler, and this is like almost a death sentence for Watch Your Step, which is one of my favorite decks. So like the interplay there was really interesting, and so I know Barry is going to be a fan of indirect damage. I mean, he loves Watto, so.
He does. I mean, he likes anything other than force rating in battle. Like, however, he's going to ping you with, Visage, whatever he can do from that perspective. Yeah. I mean, from a thematic standpoint, you can think back to the Empire scene where that's why Han's telling Riken he's got to go. He found the bounty hunter found him on Ord Mantell. He's got the death mark, etc. So,
ooh, how thematic would that be to play Dengar and Dengar is in the new Dengar in the punishing one, then he adds a battle destiny at Ord Mantell.
and go.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost
Yeah,
like
no,
there's themes in this game.
it's almost like the design was thinking about something ahead of time. Yeah, no, I mean it's I think that's actually a perfect example of what we're trying to do here is be able to recreate those scenes for those who want it, and for those who want to play it in a big blue version, and you're just throwing out Vader and the Executor and a whole bunch of other large starships, Thunderflare, etc. You got that option too. So for me, like whenever I design a card, I should also say I like to read the lore about either the location, the character, etc. If I don't know it, if it's not very popular, and Ord Mantell was apparently kind of a smuggler's paradise to a certain extent, and very much kind of rivaled Nar Shaddaa and Nal Hutta to a certain extent. So that's where
Spoiler,
the lights.
if I ever get to make a player's card, I am making one called Smuggler's Paradise. I don't know what it does yet, but that's just like the perfect name for a card.
I agree.
So Karl, so you're on playtesting. I'm bad at Star Wars cards, but the whole thing was that there was a Jabba's palace pulling lots of sites, being able to upload Nal Hutta with Jabba's Haven, and also mob points get crazy activation. This is also an effect that you can start that lets you play a system that's lots of activation. Was that something that came up in playtesting? Was it
I mean, it is, but I think the change that they've talked about with specifically Revenge of the Sith and the Palace sites, if you're trying to replicate that type of deck, like, and let's just call it it is, Rot's Maul, it was a thought, but all it's giving you is a system, but the system's also a liability because it's not a drain -1, where the other systems that you were pulling weren't liabilities. So I don't know that it's enough to move the needle. I think other proposed changes, I don't want to get into too much. I'm pretty sure that one has been out in Slack and other places, so I don't feel too bad about saying that. So
that one's been Chris Kelly says we felt that this is important, that they're not just low liability systems. So that makes sense. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I see meta things, and that just jumped out of me a little bit. But
I mean, it is not a situation where you take one card, replace it with another, and you still have the same problem. Like they are, I think the change solves that particular piece, and this in and of itself, thematic, it gets me thinking about decks. Like Deal is now a deck I really want to look at because it does have its activation platform because you can find certain things, but then is there a different wrinkle where I just don't have to play walkers, or maybe I do want to go big blue, but this gives me an option because, Andrew, not to steal something you said before we started, spoiler, I think one of your biggest liabilities is you never have somewhere to run with the biggest ship in the game, with the Executor, because it can go like this far.
Yeah.
So it's like nice that you can get somewhere with this, and it makes sense. So
I also like that Ord Mantell is a Parsec 7, because so often with the Parsec 3 Nal Hutta, which we'll have to see, we'll have to see how this fits into court, because Jabba's Havens is still a pretty good card. So yeah, I almost feel like you start all wrapped up and then you float Jabba's Haven. Because also Jabba's Haven, you can't do it the other way around. Because when Jabba's Haven's out, you can't deploy Ord Mantell with the new errata. But it'll be interesting to see how this. Because I always want to play like 35 ships in court. Like I just want to play. I want to play all the space. So being able to have more than one system in court seems pretty cool. And just in general, this is a card that, I mean, I guess Mob Points did it before, but this is a free 2-1 system that technically the effect could start in any deck. So like if you have any reason to justify like if you're in a bracket and your opponent's going to play Watch Your Step, maybe you sub this in over over something so that you can get that death mark out. I don't know. It's just it's a neat little choice. So
Well, they can't alter it.
Yeah.
Not a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. All right. And let's go on to, this is the big one. Hopefully people are watching. This is
all
this
two
is a
of
good
us
one.
are waiting.
How many viewers do we have? I can't tell. We have 9 viewers. That's something. That's like a holo theater. And then this will be released in audio and video form in various places. So, and then we've got. I just clicked the wrong button. Move to top. There we go.
Kendall, while you're waiting, I was fortunate enough or unfortunate enough this time last year to be on the top Luke episode, and I think
I thought about this.
I think I went down swinging defending Luke Skywalker, Rebellion's Hope, who Andrew, I believe your name is on that card somewhere, and I remember distinctly thinking about one of the cards that we talked about on this, how it was a card that has a special place in your heart, the one you're about to show. And I think it's up on screen.
It's definitely on screen. Son of Skywalker. The card that when I was a kid, I thought that was supposed to be Luke Skywalker's son. Because I didn't understand things. Like definitely best. I would say image-wise, the card that has deserved a virtual version more than probably anything in the entire game. So, adds to the power of anything you pilots. During battle, characters hit by Luke may not fire weapons. Once per game, may download Anakin's lightsaber on Luke. If a battle was just initiated where Luke present with a Dark Jedi, may exclude all other characters and vehicles. Immune to attrition less than 4. That's a wild card. And it's power and ability 5. Deploy 5, forfeit 8. Destiny 1. Yeah. So where'd this guy come from?
So I think much to what both you and Karl mentioned earlier. So I think Son of Skywalker has been long overdue for a virtualization. I think for a lot of us, whether you started a little bit after premiere and regular Luke Skywalker was that chase card, and all of a sudden you got this monster who was a 5/5, and at the time you thought, geez, it's like he is one of the best in the game characters in the game, and he was, aside from Obi-Wan and Vader. So what we're looking at here from a design perspective, thematically, Luke Skywalker is the one who's running headfirst in the battle, right? He's not the one who's the calm, collected one from what I would say is Luke Skywalker's Jedi Knight. So he doesn't necessarily have that kind of tank mentality, but what he does have is something that I think is pretty unique in that he forces the Dark Jedi he can exclude everyone else. So he's forcing that Dark Jedi to fight him alone. And I think it's really representative of the fact of kind of the last part of Empire, where Luke is the one chasing after Vader essentially to save his friends, obviously, and Vader doesn't want anyone around. So that's the idea behind kind of that last part of the game text. In relation to, Anakin Skywalker, whether you want to believe that Anakin Skywalker could be picked up out of Tabana gas and somehow reemerged on Rey, that's great. But I wanted it. I think Anakin Skywalker really belongs on Luke, at least until Return of the Jedi. Again, going back to thematics for me. And then kind of going all the way backwards, during battle, characters hit by Luke. This kind of reminded me of the duel with Vader. And so he swings and it ticks Vader off so much that he swings and misses. And we got and that idea. So I part of me actually went back and forth between whether to make it, hit and not being able to swing back, or hit and then you make the person power -3 or something like that, similar to what Glancing Blow was. Ultimately, because I wanted Son of Skywalker, given his low immunity, to have a little bit more staying power, I chose that, he's already got kind of a deficiency with not having the strongest immunity to attrition. So, him being susceptible to being hit, I think would have kind of maybe made him not viable compared to other Lukes. So that's where this kind of came in.
Yeah, I mean, Luke
and
a Luke with only immunity less than 4, that's something.
Right.
I
I
that's
mean, you're gonna have
definitely
to
a
find like
challenge.
Yoda's gimmer stick or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something along those
Does
lines.
bionic
I mean,
hand add Luke's bionic hand adds to his immunity, right?
That's
mhm.
yep, and it would be very appropriate,
Yeah.
as evidenced by the end of Empire. So I
I
mean,
mean,
it
because he
works out
lost
perfectly.
it. He lost his hand in that fight. Makes sense.
That's right. That's right.
Um,
Uh,
Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, I was just going to say the one thing that I would also add is that it has a Cloud City icon, which is kind of like an Easter egg. So if you look at the very bottom underneath the warrior, so we've added an icon. So that's kind of an Easter egg for what's to come. So we're excited about that. That was something that Chris mentioned and added to, and I think it actually puts us in a really good place for future design opportunities.
Design has been pretty free with the expansion symbols as a design tool. Who do you know? Do you know when that started, or was that before your time?
I think it may have been a little bit just before our time, but what the design thinks about when we're looking at the different set symbols is it creates a barrier so that if we want to design something a little bit more powerful, it's not accessible to any persona of it. So, if we want to make something where it's targeting, let's say, Cloud City Rebels, now it's going to be accessible to Luke, or the Son of Skywalker in this case specifically, but you can't use it with Jedi Knight Luke, or you can't use it with EPP Luke. So
Right.
for us, it's a way of kind of keeping things in check so that we don't have overpowered cards. And so honestly, the hardest one is Premiere because there is no symbol, right? And so what are you going to do in that circumstance where you really want to buff something that has no symbol? So we're kind of working through that process too. But it definitely is intentional, and I think it's a great way to design moving forward.
So Chris Kelly in the chat says it started when Chris Kelly hated using virtual set icons.
That is awesome.
I mean, I do appreciate when people talk about themselves in the third person. This is great.
I mean, it's like Jimmy from Seinfeld.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about virtual cards, and I really feel like these last few sets we've had a few of, is the ability to be like, there are insane versions of these characters. There is an insane version of Boba Fett. There are several insane versions of Luke. Darth Maul with, and this goes back a little ways, but Darth Maul with lightsaber is an insanely powerful card, and to be able to create virtual versions that are like, doing things that other cards would probably not be able to do. If this was just some random dude, if this was like a Jedi from High Republic era or something, like, that doesn't have, or if this was a new character, like, you wouldn't be able to have him exclude everybody except for a Dark Jedi and pull a lightsaber and have the people not fire weapons. But because this is Luke, you're able to do these cool things, and it's this like we can do anything. Cards can do anything we want you can do, as long as you don't have 6 other cards that also can do crazy things that you can play. And the persona rules is one of the things in Star Wars cards that does a really good job of limiting that.
Mm-hmm. And Kendall, my thought on Son of Skywalker is, I think that the battling the Dark Jedi piece, I think, is going to be really interesting in decks that maybe play like Luke Saga. Could this be like a way to build a quasi hit and run version, because like you may want to do that because you get the saber, you can still play the effect. Like, it's something I've been thinking about since I saw the card. I'm like, there's different decks I'm going to try this in. Like, Watch Your Step, he gets a saber now, great, and it helps with the Dark Jedi battle because like Brigham is a terrible matchup. But
yeah. And the other thing that I would say is kind of this out of the box thinking, which I like with this Luke specifically, is it really helps with the Phantom Menace, right? So now even if you want to play your Jedi and mix eras, great. You can play this Son of Skywalker, and where normally Maul would feel pretty comfortable in front of, let's say, maybe a Mace or an Obi-Wan or whoever. Well, Now you can actually play Son of Skywalker, exclude them both, and now the Phantom Menace won't apply because now it's just a battle between an ability 5 character. So especially if you're playing an EPP Maul, he loses all the immunity at that point. And if you're able to swing first, he also doesn't get to swing. So a lot of opportunity there to kind of, I think, is kind of a soft counter to Maul and what he can do against high ability light side characters.
And
keep talking for a minute.
Okay, well, I was not to mix eras, but we were going to go to the new trilogy, and I sent out a message for help. I was sending it out from Leia's Resistance Transport, and I've gotten a message. Andrew, is design doing anything with Leia's Resistance Transport?
We are trying to make it a little bit more balanced, since it seemed that Leia had that Resistance Transport, whether you were in the prequels or whether you were in the original trilogy or where it was supposed to be in the in the episode 7 and beyond. So yes, we are doing something so that we find it a little bit more fair. Would you like to tell more about it, Karl?
Hold on, I need
the communication.
Just a second. Keep talking.
Okay. The communication might have gotten gargled in transmission, but Leia's Resistance Transport, Destiny 3, Starship Capital Resistance Transport, Power 3, Armor 4, Hyperspeed 3, so all those are the same. May add 2 pilots, 5 passengers. Permanent pilot provides ability of 2. Deploys and moves like a starfighter. All of this is the same. When deployed, may download a female resistance character aboard. Deploy -2 if a leader. Deploy 3, forfeit 5. So all of the stats stay the same. The only thing that is changing is the download mechanic.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I think that when we talked about it within design, one of the challenges is Rey is such a good character. Being able to get that use pile pull, the total battle destiny +1, and now you can basically pull it for free, right? So I mean, you as Darkseid, you almost consider whether it was an auto pull, because for the token space, most likely it was going to be Rey and Leia's Resistance Transport. So now,
I mean, look at 0 Hour, right?
Correct, exactly. Definitely not thematic. Not that was a part of the decision in whether we were going to do this or not. We just thought from a balance perspective, we want to make token space available to both sides, but by the same token, we don't want the same token space to just fed in every single time. When I think about design, I want to think about different options of what fits well with that specific deck, and this just hit above the power curve. All of us agreed, and so we wanted to find a way in which we could tone it down where, sure, it still makes sense, especially in no allies or old allies, excuse me, but maybe not no idea, kind of mixing the two, ironically enough, the 2 deck themes. So that's kind of the idea behind this. We really wanted to think about a way in which we could give people the opportunity to explore other decks and other ships specifically. And I think we're going to be able to do that because now we don't have to make something that's more powerful than Leia's Resistance Transport, where again, we just go up the power curve and that's not going to be good for the game. Here we've had it take a step back, and now we can create something that's going to be a little bit more impactful.
You mentioned no idea, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm not going to play, 2 Leia's boats and Rey, which we'll talk about in a second, but maybe now I do play the Masana or more different Corellian Corvettes to see if maybe use the Zero side to flip a little bit different. So
yeah,
I didn't cut you off there, but that was just where my
light
mind
side
went.
definitely has a lot of ships. So having
some of them good.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Darkseid sometimes struggles with like the sort of token space packages, and that's like a meme or whatever. But Lightside definitely doesn't. Lightside has Han, Chewie, and the Falcon, and Home One, and 700 other options. So I can see
Gold Leader and Gold One. Woo!
I don't want to see more of that.
Well, even if you think about, you've got Han, Chewie, and the Falcon that has a puller with where's Han. And so that can be grabbed really easily. And with this one, all you have to do is pull the ship. So whether you're using tunnel vision, depending upon if you use that, or whether you use one of your other use pile pulls from I Must Be Allowed to Speak or something along those lines, or however you do it. Like, and then you're getting another use pile pull because you can get Ray from your reserve deck. And so now this, you can still do that, but it's going to cost you a little bit more. So I think it just adds a little bit more decision making to whether this is the card that you want in your deck.
All right. So we do have another spoiler that we provided.
Yeah, so we talked about no longer downloading Ray. I mean, Ray is an amazing card. She's in every deck. She's an amazing character.
Sometimes 2.
Sometimes 3.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So, a lot of people in a lot of different venues have talked about changes here. So I'm going to read it, and Andrew, if you can kind of give Design's thoughts on this. Ray, Carillion, Destiny 1, female scavenger, resistance character, power 4, ability 4, 4 sensitive, pilot, still 3. Once per game, when deployed, may take any card into hand from used pile, reshuffle. Your total battle destiny here is +1. Once per turn, may draw the bottom card of your force pile. Immune to attrition less than 3, -600 coup, deploy 4, forfeit 7. Once per game. Discuss.
So this would actually, there's a lot of discussion around this on Design. Some people felt that she was right in the great place. Others of us, I mean, clearly I'm showing mine, felt she was a little overtuned. So I think this came to a happy medium. So, you know, the idea here is that the use pile pull is something that is incredibly impactful and very powerful because you don't actually have to spend a force and be able to use it, right? You're using force already, and now you get to take something already. So unlike something like QMC with keeping the Empire out forever, where you have to pull the card from your force pile, you can't use it first. Use pile pulls are something we're taking a hard look at, and we're going to be limiting it as much as possible.
As a not good player, they're a crutch, and I'm here for it. But I do kind of get it.
See, but they're not even they're not a crutch. They're the opposite of a crutch. Like it's a skill. It's an additional decision. So it's actually like a higher skill ceiling kind of thing.
I was saying it for the lulz.
I'm saying it to say it.
Well, and you still get it. I mean, it's just you still get it, and it's a character that can fit in almost any deck. So she's great. You can still play her on, the transport, and that's fine too. You pay a little bit more, but again, you're still getting the use pile pull.
Right, but that's a choice now. So it's like a little bit more of a cost, and so when you're building a deck and you're allocating those slots and you're thinking of resources, you like. No idea, you're not really activating all that much. And in some matchups, it's, back to what I hear is like the old days where you're only activating 10 on turn 2. Who knew? But I do think that there's some interplay there. Now, a deck like 0 Hour where you're activating 70,000 on turn 3, maybe the tax is still worth it, but, there's more to come in other areas. But I think it kind of makes sense because everyone's been asking for some changes to these cards, and I think this strikes a good balance.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of people that really like Ray, and I appreciate that. So I think rather than just cutting it completely, we're giving you the opportunity to do it, but you can't just forfeit her, then walkling her back, and then possibly 3PO her, and now you're getting another use pile full. So
or the Anakin Saga deck that Drew made really popular when he won San Diego. It's like, okay, I'll just play Ray 5 times.
Right.
Yeah, I think I mean, if the point of Ray's use pile pull is to make her like the mains in is basically giving her an imbats pull. Imbats pulls are once per game. I think that's reasonable. Right. Chris Kelly says, for the record, I was in the can we make her a little better camp? And I mean, honestly, I think that Rey is one of the best design cards in all of Star Wars CCG. I don't have an issue with this errata beyond the fact that I, have a low grade issue with all errata ever. But this seems fine. I think that this is the kind of errata that, like, yes, it might change how you play. It might impact whether you play 2 copies or 3 copies or whatever, but it's not going to, if somebody hasn't played for a year and they have an old copy of an old Ray slip in there, then you'll just be, oh, that's once per game now, and they'll be like, well, that's lame, and then they'll go on with their day.
Right.
you know,
and hopefully that's the one comment that they have. Yeah. And then you can point out the other erratas that we have in this.
Well, yeah,
all good, I should say. But if they missed that one, we're going to go for it.
Kendall, you're prophesizing something that's going to happen in the basement in 2 months.
In 2 months, yeah.
Yes.
With Travis,
because or us in general, just playing and be like, oh, once per game, ma.
Well, it'll be that. Well, it'll be no. Well, yeah, you're right. It will. I will wish that it was, but that's different from not being aware of it. I just, like, a lot of times with errata, and it's way better now that it's been consolidated to once a year. But a lot of times, I've played with people who, it's their first net deck, and they look at a list from a year ago, and many of the cards that allow the deck to function, like, at a fundamental level, like including like starting cards or whatever, no longer do what they say they do.
Well, there was a story that someone came to a major and was playing map, and they were still playing the old Emperor, the episode 7 Emperor, and this was before the change. So it's like
not map. Bring him before me. Somebody was playing
that's right.
Before me with the old Emperor. Yeah. I definitely.
Well, and I think. Sorry, I mean, what I was going to say and this is just personally from my own design point, is I think, obviously, one of the things that we want to avoid very much is card load. Like, so that it's something that we're consciously thinking of how we can maximize new gameplay without necessarily having a ton more cards come out, because it takes a lot of effort from a number of different folks out there, whether it's proofing, whether it's images, whether it's our amazing slicers or anything along those lines, and everything in between. So what I like about the erratas, yes, it means we have to do a little bit more cutting and pasting, but by the same token, I think it provides us with the opportunity to avoid that card bloat, so we can still focus on things within design and make things that we'd like to see played better. And so to a certain extent, I think it avoids the dreaded R word of a reset, because now we're fixing things and putting them in a better place than they were. So rather than kind of scaling up and up and up, and finally we just have to reset, here what we're doing is we're modifying everything and tweaking, both positive, I think, and decreasing power on cards, that I think really adds value to the game, so that there's longevity over the current designs.
Yeah, you guys are probably right. I'm still allowed to be.
Oh no, you can definitely be pissed. I mean, you can absolutely.
I'm not. I just, and I think that we've, like you said, meeting in the middle. I think that there's a huge difference between saying December we're gonna take a look at stuff and do a patch or whatever, and after every, what felt like, even if it wasn't necessarily every major, what felt like after every major, the deck that won gets an errata, which was, maybe that didn't even happen as often as it felt like, but I just, because I just say this as somebody that plays in a lot of locals, and as somebody that plays with a lot of people who are kind of in and out. That was rather rough, but now I feel like there's no excuse. Now I feel like it's been consolidated enough. This is set 24. Like, if set 24 has come out, you should have seen set 24. Like, if it's a set with a number, then I think that's pretty key. And we don't live in a perfect world. You're right.
So, Andrew, as someone who got to hear you go around and ask people, like, for feedback, to kind of put a bow on all this, thank you to everyone on design and all of the volunteers who pour a lot of time and effort and thought and read and take all this feedback and try to come up somewhere in the middle. Like, this game and this community has been amazing. I've made great friends. Kendall and I get to play, weekly, and we get together, and I think friendships are formed. Shout out to Patty's Bar in Germany. But thank you to everyone on who goes through and puts effort into making these cards, because it's so much fun. And yeah, there's just a lot with set 24.
There's a lot. I mean, I think that, I'm knock on wood, I'm hoping people are really excited by it. I know that people are clamoring for spoilers, and I can tell you from behind the scenes, Chris, Greg, everyone's working tirelessly. Again, I cannot say how much I appreciate our slicers. Like, they're the ones doing all the coding, and they're having to go back and recode things in addition to some new cards that we're really excited about. So huge shout out to them, and everyone in between. I mean, I could probably spend 5 minutes kind of putting out accolades for everyone that kind of goes into this sort of thing. So thank you.
All right. Yes. Thanks everybody and stuff. Let's go ahead and keep this stream has been going on for almost an hour. So let's go ahead and turn the page and let's talk the Pivo questionnaire. Andrew, I don't know if you've ever listened to an episode of Corran on the Horn. These questions are based off of James Lipton's Inside the Actors Studio questionnaire that he asks all the actors at the end. Interpret them however you want. Some of them don't necessarily make sense because I added Star Wars words to questions. So I'm going to have both of you answer these questions so that I can have you both on the record for this very important information. The only thing is, if don't answer a question, some of the questions mirror each other. So if I say ask for something you like, don't say like anything except for the thing I don't like. So give me, because you're going to get the chance to say that one. So first question, what is your favorite card?
Figure and Dan.
All right.
3PO with this part showing.
Okay. I got to
say, the only AI I actually own.
So I listened to all the episodes of the Kessling run, but the only thing that I remember about it is when Mike Kessling, his girlfriend, asked him who's Finger and Dan.
Well, I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean, he's a character, like, he's one of my, I don't know what it is, but like, I think he was a really interesting design. You don't see play anymore. He doesn't see play anymore because he costs 2 force for the retrieval, 1 for the bet, and then 1 for the retrieval. When
I need to revise my answer. It's Sergeant Karl.
All right.
There you go.
What is your least favorite card?
The Watto Objective?
That's a good one, by the way. I would say, come here, you big coward, on the shield, because as someone, and I saw this in the Slack a little bit, probably a couple days ago, like, as someone who feels like your Twix should be a liability, I think that card really stifles that opportunity. So, yeah.
What types of cards stimulate your creativity?
Things that make Shadow Collective better.
Well, you're going to be happy this said. Something thematic that allows some open deck space. So, I mean, I would say Diplo does a great job of that, where you're playing something, but you can play Diplo in a number of different ways. Yeah, I think that would be my answer around that.
That's really interesting, because I don't really think of, I don't think Diplo, it's not that Diplo isn't thematic. I just kind of think of the mechanics of Diplo as being a little bit more bottom up than top down. But that's interesting, because it's sort of a, Tatooine operations deck. Like you play.
But it can be very toolboxy with the IBATs and the flipping.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah.
I mean, which is also, again,
Mhm.
that's mechanic based, bottom
Yeah.
up rather than
Yeah.
top down.
I
But
see
it
what you're
is
saying.
not.
Yep.
But you're right that it is not thematic in that you're only using characters from a particular time period for the most part, and this is interesting. What types of uh, both of you answered that, right? Yeah, yeah. You did. What
Yeah.
types of card make you want to quit the game?
Lotto objective. I've been
Same
on a
theme.
losing streak to Lotto lately, so
I don't know if there is one, to be honest with
Mm-mm.
you. I, I mean, I guess I would say revolution, like way back when, like
Okay.
something where they would completely deny your
Something
force,
that's
but you don't have to worry about that.
like a legit NP, like a classic NPE. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
What is your favorite Star Wars term or phrase?
lose 2 force.
Mind what you have learned, save you a can.
Okay. What opponent's deck do you love to see?
Anything with battlegrounds. Like to me, the most fun game of Star Wars is where you're not battling over one site, but you're battling over a series of viable locations. And I think that goes back to kind of the "come here, you big coward" comment. Like, I think you should have to battle over your Twix. So, I mean, to me, that's anything along those lines. I think makes for a really good game. So that's where I think the thematics standpoint comes into, where you can put Hothex together,
Yeah.
Diplo IE, etc.
Yeah, I've definitely been on the record of like if in order for a site to be a battle, the definition of a battleground should be anywhere where both players have either presence or force icons.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, JJD said something, I don't remember what he said, that actually made me kind of change my mind. And in general, I think that like if that kind of change, you would have to redesign all of Star Wars cards to accommodate for it. But I agree with you that it's awkward.
Well, and I think there's a possibility within design of whether that ever comes out of making it so it works alongside the Coward Shield, because obviously you don't want Asteroid Sanctuary, Rounding Rampart, and you don't want other things that aren't necessarily fair. But make some liability to it.
Yeah, I mean, things like Asteroid Sanctuary, Sand World, the Senate, like stuff like that, like other the shielded sites, other things. But I mean, I was just speaking like the baseline, just like because right now the baseline definition of a battleground is a site where both players have force icons.
Right.
I think that in the past, at least, my take has been that if you could change that to defining that baseline battleground as anywhere where both players have either presence or force icons. So if you invade the Executor. Why did I say Executor? We just lost Karl. Well, he can answer the rest of the questions sometime. I'm sure he'll let us know what's going on. Anyway, but yeah, you got what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What opponent's deck do you hate to see?
I would probably say, and this kind of goes way back when, so numbers. So I remember I was in a game, this was when I was young, and Decipher still had the license, and I played a very unorthodox deck, shocker there. And I got to the number one table, and I was against Joe Allreed from way back when, before he joined Decipher, and he was playing a numbers deck. And I had 3 Tortures, which is the Canceller in the deck. And I never drew one of them. And I kept drawing up, which ultimately then pinged all of the numbers. It's just brutal. So yes, that would be the deck that I would hate most.
Chris Kelly says that Karl rage quit when I mispronounced Executor. Because I do say Executor generally, because it sounds cooler than Executor. And I mean, the ship in Force Awakens is the Finalizer. Finalizer is also not a name. There's also.
I mean, I think you were ahead of your time, Kendall. That's what I'm hearing here.
So got 3 more questions here. Oh, we got Karl back.
Oh, there we go.
Karl, what opponent's deck do you hate?
My battery died. I'm back. Anything that avoids battles. I want to battle you. It's all about winning.
Okay.
And battling.
What Star Wars job would you love to try?
A bartender at the cantina.
I mean, that's a really good answer. I don't know if I can top that one. No, you know what? I think racing in Beggar's Canyon would be pretty fun.
Okay.
Sanitation worker on the Death Star was my backup choice.
What Star Wars job would you want to avoid?
I said it already.
The sanitation worker on the Death Star?
Yeah.
I don't know. Cleaning Vader's back to tank sounds pretty awful to me.
All right. And if you were the boss of Star Wars cards, what would you do about the future of the game? What would you want to see with the future of the game?
I mean, for me, I really like the direction of the game where it is right now. I would, if I was the boss and I had unlimited funds, I would promote it more. Like just from a monetary. I think our marketing team does a phenomenal job, but I would just throw cash at getting people back into the game for those who don't know about it. Because how often do we hear people, I didn't know it was back into the game and I just randomly looked it up. So maybe making us more prevalent on Google or something like that. Right. Exactly, Karl. So I think that's what I would do.
Mine would be to try and find a way to have the European and American community interact more often. Either more of us going there or them coming here, because they were just so amazing to meet when I got to this past summer.
Maybe we meet in the middle of like Bermuda or something. I mean,
well, people keep talking about Iceland. Like do the just everyone meet in Iceland.
Star Wars cards in the Blue Lagoon. I can just see it now.
All right.
Cruise liner across the Atlantic.
Yep.
Well, I think that is. So those are the questions. These are the people. Thanks, you guys, for doing this. This was a lot of fun. If you like this, go to kendallcast.ninja and the Kendallcast Network on YouTube and see all the stuff I do. Keep an eye out. I'm sure that the full set will be dropped very soon. And go to Las
Sooner
Vegas
than you
in January.
We're trying.
Stuff.
We're trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Until next time, good luck, have fun, and no reverts.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Yep.